Okay, let's see if we're actually live. Because everybody knows nothing ever goes wrong around here. All right, that's better. We are actually live. Welcome to 420. Yeah, it's 412. And believe it or not, I am the most sober person on the planet. I'm allergic to pot. That's irony for you. All right. So, today, I have promised you some real rants, and there we go. I want to talk first about false flags. There's a lot going around about a false flag event. Specifically the Nashville shooting, school shooting. Do not use those words on my channel. Let's just get there. Propping up dead kitties and some sort of using dead kitties as a political prop is a disgusting act for which you should be beaten in the street like an animal, a rabid animal. Okay. This was not a false flag event, first of all. And second of all, people who are saying that, whether it's true or not, are disgusting people. You don't want me sitting on the jury for the guy that beat them to death in the streets. They'll go home. It's as simple as that. I really doubt that you can get 5 people to all tell the same lie at the same time. Especially when you can confirm that, yes, these are actually cops. That's a little bit more difficult still. Now, there is some interesting information related to that false flag claim. Specifically related to the woman's shoes. All right. In one picture or one set of video, whatever, it's one style of shoe, and in another much, much closer video, you can clearly see that they're Vans. That part I know. They're clearly Vans. Okay. Yeah, I've heard it floated that maybe she changed school shoes inside the school. That strikes me as less likely, but if she has the presence of mind and the clearness of thought to change her shoes, even if there's no rational reason for it, she was not mentally ill. Correction, she was mentally ill, but not so much that she can't stand trial. Couldn't stand trial. So you probably don't want to bring that up in general. All right. I've also heard this theory floated now at least 3 times, seemingly independently. I'm going to throw one under the bus. Eric Tansey from Failure to Stop. This is where I heard it first. Floated that the camera that recorded her in the act with a lower resolution, when that image went to the computer filled in the blanks as best as it could and came up with one answer. The cops, who got literally, what is it? Well, from what I've seen, they got within a couple of feet. Reality, they got down and would have checked her pulse to make sure she's really dead. so that they don't have to empty a couple more clips into her. They could clearly see that, yeah, these are vans. Okay. One camera with a bad resolution got one answer. Another camera with a much better resolution because it's much closer. It's actually lesser quality camera, but because it's only a couple feet away, it's getting a much better image. Got a very, very different, accurate answer. I will concede, however, that a lot of people were saying, "Are you watching for a false flag event?" Apple, that did happen. That was going on for 2 weeks before the events. So don't give me some shit about that. They were saying, "Oh, be watching for the false flag," right? Well, the shooter heard this kind of talk too and decided that this wasn't going to be a false flag. She was going to make it happen to advance the agenda that her masters commanded. That does not make it a false flag. That makes it a very, very real flag executed by a slave. Her masters told her to do it, or commanded that somebody should do it, so she did it. Do not use that kind of language on my channel. I will flip the fuck out on you. This is particularly brought to my frustrated attention because on another platform, the question, the subject came up, and somebody gave a reply to me. The funny part is, you think any of this is real? I'd heard people say it. I probably would have ignored it, but for this one jack-off joke, saying it to me. It is always, always a mistake. Never, ever fucking lie to me. All right. Using instant life. Say the word. Wow. Saying the person who took those lives is a hero. That hurt, Ozzy. That hurt. But it's true. So I can go fuck myself. Seeing footage of the doors being shot out, then saw her climb in, saw footage of the actual image. Okay, so Ozzy's not wrong. First of all, he's not wrong. Second of all, I don't blame him. I do have that horror burned into my mind. Well, that's my problem. That's my problem. I also want to point to something else about the police body cam footage. And don't go looking. You don't, as Ozzy said, you don't need this burned into your mind. At one point, the officers passed by one of the dead children. She's lying there in the passageway, and they blur out her face. Yes, you can fake that. All right, you can. That's true. You're not going to. You're not going to think of that. They'd think of it, and then they'd say, no, the chances of actually happening are lower, and it'll incite too much hate. We're not going to go that direction. Not even for the agenda. We love you, Susan. You cunt. All right. Do not use that kind of language on my channel. Just don't do it. I will snap like a twig. It has actually taken me all week to calm down this much, and I'm still fucking furious. I'd like to find this guy, throw him in a mental hospital where you don't have freedom of movement. You know what they call that? They call it a psychiatric correctional facility. That's what they call it. This guy belongs in prison, segregated from the rest of the population because he's obviously mentally ill, and he's also that dangerous. And fuck that guy. The guy that said, lol, the funny part is you think this is real. Fuck you. Just go fight. You know what? Find a permanent solution to temporary problems. Don't ever fucking speak to me again. Fuck that guy. Okay. Not angry. I swear. Not angry. Furious, but I'm not angry. All right. From Facebook. Remember, folks, all of this crap actually started with the Facebook page. It didn't start with the Facebook page. It started with a group, but moving on. I had posted something about gun control supporters. Picture of an M1, an M2, and an M1 carbine, M2 carbine, and an M1 carbine replica. And I know which is which. Talked about it last week, I think. Excuse me. I remember Shadow insisting he knew the answer. Well, he does, but that's not the point here. There's a couple other people that may be watching who know the answer, and they got it the same way. Anyway, I posted that picture up, and I said, gun control supporters, pick the assault weapon. There is one here. If you can't, sit down and shut up. Yeah, I said shut up. Shut up is another way of saying go fuck yourself. You have nothing to say. Don't speak. You're stupid. You're retarded. You're a liar. Shut up. So when I use that kind of language, it probably should be a clue that this is not a normal situation. At any rate, he responded with a comment about how would mandatory carry have prevented this situation. He put up a link to the Florida road rage incident. All right, I'm going to go through the facts of the case to the best of my knowledge, with the acknowledgement that I know I don't know the whole story. Not only do I not know the whole story, but I can tell you the parts I don't know. Two vehicles are headed down the same stretch of road, right? The same stretch of highway. One moves in front of the other. The driver of the others concludes that the driver of the one cut him off. Whether that's true or not, whether any of that's true, actually, I don't know. Right? But that is the story that's being floated. The driver of the other then pulls alongside the driver, the one. pulls alongside the one and throws a water bottle at him or at the vehicle or something. Okay. I know I don't know Florida law. That's not even a matter up for discussion. I know I don't know Florida law. I do not know Florida traffic law either. I've never been in Florida except maybe on a plane, sitting on a plane at an airport. Yeah, that's it. That's all I've ever done. If that much. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad I include the chat in the background. That's the information I have. At this point, the other throws a water bottle at the one. They start headed down the road again, and shots are exchanged. Right? It's kind of a more or less fuck you rounds, but shots are exchanged. There is pretty good video of one of them on the phone, we presume with 911, saying, a man just shot at me, I've returned fire, blah, blah, blah. In this exchange of bullets, both daughters were hit. One was apparently hit very seriously. The other was hit seriously enough that she would have headed to the hospital. I can't imagine she was not taken to the hospital. I don't know what that circa 87 thing means, Aussie. I'm sorry, you got me confused. Here's the things I don't know. First of all, did he really cut him off? Was the water bottle really thrown? Oh, who drew their weapon first? Who shot first, really? Does Florida law in general, or at least Florida traffic law, have a offensive or insightful speech or gestures law? These are some things I know I don't know. I know Oregon does have offensive, has a fighting words law. Any speech or gesture which is intended to offend is actually illegal under state law. It is not a carte blanche to do anything, but it's an affirmative defense. You know, somebody flips you off and you shove him, right? You're going to be guilty of misdemeanor assault, even though there was no actual assault. They went straight to battery. You're going to be guilty of misdemeanor assault. The cop probably will just tell you to walk away under most circumstances. If it escalates from there, it's an affirmative defense to where the escalation went. He told me to go. He called me a faggot to my face. I shoved him. He swung. He kept going from there. Oh, okay. And then you beat the brakes off of him. Eventually, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this guy started the fight. He really did. He called you an F-bomb to your face. See, folks, that's where I first learned to use the term F-bomb as a euphemism for faggot. Sitting in the class, getting my guard card in Oregon, and I learned of this law where learning of this fighting words law. I'd never heard of such a thing. Well, I had, but I'd never seen a state where that was law. I thought that was ancient history. Hey, Luke, you made it. Cool. Just Folks, Luke is at work and he is working very hard right now. So obviously he can only listen in. Oh, excuse me. All right. So the idea of a fighting words law, that's Wild West shit. And here it is still on the books in Oregon. Oh, wow. And it is an affirmative defense to where things might go, as opposed to where they were at that point. Now, I don't know Florida law. Do they have a fighting words law? Do they have a provocative speech and gestures law? California actually does have a provocative gestures law in the motor vehicle code. That makes it actually a crime to flip somebody off on the freeway. And I'm going to come back to this in a moment. But it's basically boils down to people flipping each other off in LA, and then road rage incidents begin. The throwing of a bottle is very much a provocative speech. And depending on the state, that by itself is felony assault and battery. Here in Nevada, it can become felony assault and battery because of the moving vehicle aspect. It's a vehicle moving fast enough that the bottle making contact with the person becomes seriously injurious. The answer is yes, it becomes felony battery, but no assault. That's a reflection of the basic facts. Texas, this was automatically assault and battery, whether it was felony or not. One of you Texans will have to clarify that for me. Maybe Shadow will come in later and fill us in. Excuse me. All right. But this is automatically an escalation, and it's a physical escalation. At this point, you could have still walked away. Hey, what the fuck is that guy's problem? He's throwing water bottles at me? Maybe get his plates, call him into the cops, 100 other things. No. Instead, one of the two pulled a gun. Now, this is something I don't know who did this part first. I only know which video I saw. And I'm not entirely sure about that either. I just know what the driver's face looks like, and I might be able to identify his voice. I wouldn't want to be a witness for either side in the case based on what little I saw, though, if you know what I mean. Okay. I want to show this one real quick. Might be covered by disturbing the peace catch-all. No. Anytime the cops get involved, obviously the peace got disturbed. However, you cannot disturb a peace officer's peace. That's why they exist, to go find the disturbances of the peace. So a private citizen has to make that complaint. Disturbing the peace was the crime that I pled guilty to in my case, even though no apparent victim existed. I'm just saying, Mr. DA, one of these days, you know what? I should timestamp this, send that to the DA's office in question and say, you thought you were going to bullshit me, boy. All right. At any rate, at some point, one of them pulled a gun. Now, whether that was justified or not, I don't know. First of all, I don't know Florida uh, vehicle and penal code. I know I don't know that. I kind of know Oregon and Nevada penal code. I used to know California vehicle code very well. Times have changed since then. So I know that I don't know enough to know whether the first shots were justified or not. It's as simple as that. But here's something else I do know I know. As this whole thing started, the one did not know the other had a gun. The other did not know the one had a gun. As the thing is starting to develop, a little lack of respect all around came into play, right? And things escalated. One of them drew the gun and opened fire first. This is an absolute unavoidable fact of the matter. Somebody shot first. He did not realize that his opposite had a gun as well and could return fire. I can't actually say that the opposite is a perfect angel. I don't know that. He could have been the one that threw the bottle. He could have been the one that cut off the other. All of these are things I don't know. All right. I only know what I do know, which is that both of them did not realize the other had a gun as they chose to escalate this thing further and further to a point where it should never have been to begin with. I don't give a fuck if Florida is a stand your ground state. It's not relevant here. What is relevant, as I was coming home from Cutter Acacia as I was coming home from Cutter Acacia back in 2001, I read about a story. Now, if you're not saying, uh-oh, I read a story. If you're not saying, uh-oh, Carrie knows something that we don't know, and he's about to spank somebody pretty fucking hard, then you haven't been paying attention to the channel for a while. Thank you, Ozzy. Ozzy knows something about the vehicles involved, and he's sent that information over to me. Or maybe it's the vehicle codes that he sent. I'll check that out as soon as I can. Back in 2001, I read this story about a Los Angeles freeway shooter. Oh, boy. Yeah. The crux of the story was that Los Angelinos were using turn signals and letting other vehicles change lanes in traffic and not tailgating and not going 25 miles an hour over the speed limits and not doing all of the rude, disrespectful, and contemptuous things that Los Angelino drivers do. I've been through that traffic. Don't bother telling me it's not true. Amazingly enough, when I went through the last few times, they're not as bad as San Franciscan drivers. Oh my God, those people are trying to kill you. But anyway, because nobody wanted to be the next one to get shot. And they all knew. This guy was shooting people for tailgating, for cutting them off in traffic, for not using the turn signal, for not doing all of the basic respect things. And they wouldn't have the means to respond to respond to being shot at. because it was Los Angeles in the early 2000s or late 90s. Oh, excuse me. Um, you could sit there all day and all night and be a perfect angel. Somebody's going to cut you off. You could be out there all day and all night being, what was it? Being an asshole, a total, complete asshole. And never get a second look. But for those 6 months, Los Angelinos were driving with a whole lot of basic manners, not respect, not courtesy, basic manners. Somebody wants to move over, they use the turn signal. Somebody uses a turn signal, you'll let them move over. You don't ride the guy in front of you's ass so hard that you can read his front plates. Think I'm joking? I had people in Los Angeles riding my ass so hard I could not see the medallion or whatever the fuck you want to call it on the hood of the car because they were that close. I don't know how it is they didn't tail end me. As much as it's a trope or trite or whatever, or tripe, whatever you want to disparage it as, at the end of the day, an armed society really is a polite society. A disarmed society is an even more polite society because they don't want to be the next one. Had the Florida road rage incident, if both drivers had known the other one probably does have a gun, none of it would have started. Now, maybe there would have been a very hard horn with the very start of it. And that very hard horn would have been responded to with a moment of hesitation. That guy just blared his horn at me. Oh, maybe I cut him off. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut here. Because goddamn guaranteed, he's got a gun. If I respond now, he will shoot me. Maybe I should just take it in stride and move on with my life. Like, Hauser taking the suitcase from the woman in Total Recall. Fuck you, you asshole. He bows and walks away. Because that's what you have to do sometimes. That's a direct quote from Papa Carey. Ozzy's got jokes today. Neither one of them realized the other was armed. Just like the people of Los Angeles in the 2000s, early 2000s, did not know who the gunman was and did not want to be the next one. Some of them were driving armed at this point. They'd keep guns in their passenger seat and have their passengers sit in the back seat. That way, if somebody did take a shot at them, they could reach the gun. Did it work? No. Because to the best of my knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, that freeway shooter's still out there. To the best of my knowledge, he was never caught. It's been a quarter of a century now. It's about a part of a quarter century now. It is highly unlikely he ever will be identified unless he leaves some sort of confession. But it happened and it's not going to unhappen ever. At least in the future, people will already know the other guy's probably armed. I should probably not escalate this thing. I should probably not throw my water bottle at his vehicle or yell something out the window as I'm driving by, because that's happened to me. I was going up to Placer House, about to pull into the driveway. I slowed down because I was about to turn into the driveway. You don't have to signal if you're going to be moving out of somebody's way. That's the truth. So I didn't think about it. I did think about the fact that there's somebody back there and he probably would like me to get out of his way. But I got to stop to make this turn. I got to slow to make this turn. I make my turn and he drops the F-bomb out his window at me. I did something that maybe was not entirely smart. Hopped back in the car and I chased him about 300-ish feet. I got his plates and I let him go. I was not going to shoot him. I was not going to blow him up, whatever. I did report the vehicle to the sheriff's office. Just saying. There's no need to escalate it once it's already bad. And shooting somebody is a top tier escalation for no reason, no logical reason. And it blew up to the point where it did. Don't always have to get the last fucking word in. All right. But one thing that mandatory carry would have done is this thing wouldn't have escalated anywhere because they would have both known the other one was probably armed. Don't want to go there unless you're ready to go all the way there. Be sure that that wave is a full finger wave, okay? Squatch will not like this statement, and I don't care. It's still true. I don't know how many years ago this was, but a kid on a school bus flipped a cop off. The cop pulled the entire bus over, walked up to the kid and asked him what the problem was. Is everything okay? Are you being held hostage? Believe it or not, flipping a cop off when you're being held hostage is a great tactic. Because now the cop is going to stop that whole vehicle and everybody in it to find out what the hell's going on. Or just to fucking cite you. And then all of a sudden, you got the victim screaming bloody murder. This thing went from pissing off a police officer to a kidnapping real fast. So yeah, a big smile and a wave, especially if you know you're wrong. It's as simple as that. All right, Dadeville, Alabama, Sweet 16 shooting. This one has some confusing details, and I'm gonna be very honest here. So here's the story as it came down. First of all, this was a Sweet 16 party. Somebody came in the front door, started shooting. 4 dead, 23 injured. 1 person. All right, well, 20. So that would easily be within a single 30-round clip. Okay. And maybe that's what it was. He went out and got the biggest clip for his Glock he could get and emptied the motherfucker. That's entirely plausible. All right. Now there's been an arrest, and it's 3 young, like teenagers or very, very early 20s. I did understand the three suspects, not one, 3. That's a change right there. Are not old enough to legally drink. That's a curious thing as well. That makes things a lot worse. To be perfectly blunt, all things considered, for what I do know, I'm going to just say this sounds like a gang-related thing. Their ages, well, a drug gang-related thing, not just gang-related. Their ages indicate probability that this was gang-related. The venue, the doors were not locked. Always, always, always lock your doors. Right? Even if it doesn't stop the shooter, like the locked doors didn't stop the shooter at Nashville, it creates a problem that they have to get past, which will alert everybody, hey, something's wrong. Something is really, really wrong with this situation. Why is the glass breaking? Oh me, oh my, something's wrong. It keeps getting worse. The same guy that made so much fun of me for the Florida road rage incident. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it was the same posting. Said, how would mandatory carry have stopped this from happening? Referring to the Dadeville Sweet 16 shooting. You know what? It wouldn't have. But there would have been adults. Well, he asked, these were all kids. Are they all supposed to carry guns? No, of course not. All right. That's as stupid as saying, should we sell alcohol to minors? That's a legitimately and objectively retarded thing to ask. And he knows it. He was just being a totally complete and totally dishonest asshole. Right. Just there, I said it. All right, Mr. DW, you were being a completely dishonest and arrogantly so asshole. You're like the Taylor from DS9. What the fuck was his name? The Cardassian Taylor from DS9. One of his former bosses said of him once, why tell the truth when a lie will work just as well? That's what you're doing, brah. Folks, be very rest assured, I'm actually trying to talk to him here. I know he's not going to be here because that would require a little bit of honesty, but in the hopes that maybe he does come later. Garrick! Elim Garrick! Ozzy for the win. The spy, the Cardassian spy whose cover story was a simple Taylor. All right. Thank you, Oz. One of his former because he's a spy. One of his former supervisors said of him once, why tell the truth when a lie will just work just as well? Elim is his real name. Okay. So, DW, and this idea that all of the kids would be the only people there is absolutely fucking ridiculous, and you know it. Bare minimum, the venue would have had their staff there. You know, like the people who made sure that only party goers got in. It's called security. The owner of the venue, the guy who's bringing the cake out, also known as a fucking waiter. All the other adults who would have been there. Thanks. What on earth made you ask whether kids should have guns, DW? What kind of absolute fucking retardation made you think that that was going to be a good question to ask? But moving right along. Okay. Moving right along, I move into the next part of the equation. This morning, apparently, there was an arrest. 3 either teenagers or very early 20s, not old enough to drink. I got that part really, really clear in my head. Were arrested in connection with the shooting. Wait, there was 3 shooters? Or 1 shooter and a getaway driver? And what was the third? Or what the hell was this? Now, I'm sure over the next week or so, we're going to get more and more about this story and how evil and awful guns are. Guns are a tool. They're just a tool. If you search the channel, you'll see the opening, the intro and outro for Tales of the Gun. Yeah, Tales of the Gun, which was a series on the History Channel. The gun is a tool. It has served criminal and good man alike. Or is it good man and criminal alike? Lawman and criminal alike. Good and evil, criminal and lawman alike. Lawman and criminal. You know what? It has been at least 15 years since I've seen an episode. Just cut me some slack here. It's just a tool. You don't. It has absolutely no will of its own. Give a good man a nuclear bomb and a raging psychopath a nuclear bomb, you'll have 2 very different results. It really is kind of that simple. I'm not going to say that Truman was a wholly good man, right? Give him hell, Harry had been an artilleryman in World War I, so captain in World War I. So to say that he was a wholly good man, well, that would be a lie. It would just be a lie. But comparing him to Adolf Hitler and Emperor Hirohito is really like comparing the King of England at the time, Edward the Ninth or 10th, to Hitler or Hirohito or Stalin or Mao. And comparing them to Eddie is like comparing Pol Pot to any of them. Pol Pot was just psychopathically evil. Hey, there's a name I haven't seen. Hi, Walt. Comparing any of them to Pol Pot, he was psychopathically evil. He was genocide on roid rage. He didn't have another race to genocide, so he would have just genocided everybody, and the hell with it. Cleanse the land of all life, and I'll start all over again. Or some crazy shit. God, Nobody really knows what Pol Pot's full intentions were. But you know what? If an aggressive invader nation like North Vietnam thinks that they can invade another country, that's a bad sign. If the entire fucking world says, yeah, you can, we're okay with this, that's a very, very bad sign. It means whoever you're invading is so bad that even somebody who is objectively evil can get away with it. Driving and listening, that's fine, Walt. You and Luke are in the same boat. And thank you for being here. Where was I going with this? The gun serves good man and evil absolutely equally. And you don't have to be perfect to be reasonably good. All right. You can be an imperfectly good person. You can also be a lesser of two evils. There's a whole lot of that going around right now. And if I say the words out loud, certain parties will trip offline, although I said it on locals. Three bad boys decided that they were going to do a bad thing, and 4 people died. And part of the reason is nobody in there was able to respond. Does this ring a bell? Like the Pulse nightclub and the Q Club, and what was the other one? There was one in between the two, or maybe it was before Pulse. Anyway, one bad man did a bad thing, and nobody there was able to respond. Sorry, folks, my phone just rang. Just told me something's going on, and I don't know what it is. I know what it is. Never mind. Nobody was able to respond, so he could get away with it. To be perfectly blunt, we're lucky it was only 4 this time. Okay. I gotta stop the screen for a second because the next part is screen share. A little more complicated. No, I don't care. All right. Now, there's some parts of this that are a definition of is moments. Do you really have to be this gay, guys? All right. So this is first of all, let me make sure it's coming through clearly, because I don't want you guys to try to read around everything. Wow. You really going to be like that, YouTube? Fuck you, Susan. Oh. It decided that it was going to stall everything for a while. Okay, good. Everything's coming through. I don't give a fuck from there. Right. The oldest rifle still in use by the U.S. military was put into service 120 years ago. Wow, that's very impressive. 120 years ago. Wait, that would have been, what, 1900 or so? Huh. Well, hold up. The oldest weapon in the U.S. military arsenal is the M2 machine gun, which went into service roughly 1918. Huh. That's curious. What are you talking about? I find this part very fascinating. This article was written with the assistance of AI technology and has been edited and fact-checked by Coleman Andrews. Huh. Well, what are you talking about here, Coleman? God damn it. The M1903 Springfield, a bolt-action rifle, was put into service in 1903. Designed and manufactured by the Springfield Armory, it is the oldest rifle still in use by the U.S. military and one of the oldest firearms still in use anywhere today. Coleman. What? He goes on to say that the rifle currently in use by the U.S. military is used only for ceremonial troops. Well, yeah, and he goes on to say that most of those, at least, are what's known as demil. The barrel is plugged with lead, and the firing pins are ground down. Okay. There may be some 1903s still in use by demonstration teams, but that's not anywhere near frontline service. In fact, there is no bolt-action rifle in frontline military service except by snipers in very, very specific capacities in any military anywhere. Even the second-rate militaries and paramilitaries, in other words, mercenaries and terrorists, do not field bolt-action rifles. Excuse me. Do not field bolt-action rifles at all. They don't have the money for precision. They have to put warm bodies behind triggers. So they focus on assault weapons to exclusion. They will field M1 Garands before they'll field a bolt-action anything. The kinds of armies that do have the funding to field bolt-action rifles as precision weapons are A, very, very large and powerful, and second of all, generally have excellent training. And the M1903 is not one of the ones that's fielded currently. So, 24/7 Wall Street, Mr. Andrews, and anybody else, I want you to tell me what army fields the 1903. Give me the name. I want to see that. It is not used in any capacity other than a demonstration team, which the Navy Blue Angels continue to fly A4. God damn it! What was the A4? It was not a fighter plane. Anyway, A4s until the mid 1980s when they were finally taken out of service because they had to be. There was no parts left. Okay, I'm catching up with the chat. The 1903 is 120-ish years. I'm not going to sit here and split hairs about a year or so when it's, thank you, the Skyhawk, when it's really a matter of what day did they actually sign the contract versus what day were they demonstrated versus 100 other things. Calling the 1903 powerful by current standards is I would love to join you there, Ozzy. But define powerful when power keeps creeping up and up and up. There's a possibility of the 50 cal coming back someday. The 25 millimeter is a thing, and a 25 millimeter until about 10 years ago was restricted to an autocannon. Yeah, about 20 years ago. Was restricted to an autocannon round. Right? So that's hard to that's hard to quantify. This is Walter, and Walter's driving, so you got to give him a whole lot of slack here. 21 gun set tires are used 1903s. I think he means 21 gun salutes. That's ceremonial only. And I acknowledge that there's ceremonial use. So yeah, I mean, Walt's not lying to us. Those are demilled. Those are not combat weapons or anywhere near combat weapons. Show me the army that fields them. Doesn't exist. Macy very courteously gave me A4 Skyhawk. Thank you, Macy. Blue Angels were flying Skyhawks until the mid-1980s when they finally decommissioned the fleet because there were no parts left for the planes. They didn't even want to replace the They didn't want to replace the Skyhawks. Congress did not want them to replace the Skyhawks because this was a demonstration team. The idea of them being in combat is extremely unlikely. Well, then the Skyhawks, there are just no more parts. They can't get in the air. So all of a sudden, the Blue Angels need new planes, whether you like it or not. Or you got to decommission them. You decommission the squadron. It's one or the other. Spock, I was late and gay too. Don't worry about it, bro. Okay. I did miss something. And it was actually kind of important. Probably because that's when Spock made his announcement. Anyway, no shortage of AK or Kalashnikovs, are there? No. No, there's literally billions of AK-47s, AK-74s. Isn't there another one out there? A little bit newer, but... And I don't mean an American-made AK pattern. I mean an actual Russian-made with military use in mind, but never got there because it was not the best gun possible, even by Russian standards. Damn it. Oh, there it is. Putting the chat back up. And going to go over it real quick. God damn it. Fuck you, Susie. Okay, we're going over. On a related note, folks, never ever drink light beer. Just don't drink it. Not even Sam Adams. Sam Adams won an award at Oktoberfest, the Oktoberfest, as a light beer, and there was no light beer category, and they still won an award. Good for you. don't drink light beer. Just don't do it. Moving on. Here's a dirty little secret of the AK-47. Right? I don't know if this applies to the AK-74 so much, and I'll go over that in a moment. The AK-47 was not designed to fight wars. It was designed to police civilians. There, that's the truth. We're going to pretend that all right. Oh, stop screen. So we're going to pretend that this bottle is an AK, right? Muzzle, breech. The AK was designed so that the gun could, you obviously can't see it very well here, can flex. The receiver was basic stamped sheet metal. Now, for decades, I thought that this was a design defect caused by the reciprocation of the bolt carrier. Not the bolt necessarily, but the bolt carrier. I would discover more recently that no, that's not a design defect. That's exactly what they wanted. They wanted the barrel, or the receiver, to twist because that would turn the barrel just so slightly, throwing bullets a quarter of a mile apart if you can get them going far enough, and at least a dozen feet even at general combat range. Give me a second. I'm going to pull this back up. Whoa, 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 whoa. Stay. Motherfucker. Why would you do that? Well, you would do it so you could massacre crowds with great efficiency. Not only is it automatic, but it's also throwing the bullets every fucking where. Now, the AK-74 supposedly was designed to address some of these defects. I don't know how well it did, but it was supposed to address some of these defects. Ooh. Okay. So it is what it is. The M16A2, at least. The M16A1, yeah. But the M16A2 with that 3-round burst configuration very, very specifically addressed that weakness because it, first of all, forced you to release the trigger and think about where you're pointing the gun. M16, yeah, didn't really have to worry about that quite so much. Second of all, the frame is much more solid. The direction you point the barrel is the direction the bullet is going to go until, you wear the gun out. Not that I've ever done that, exactly that, with a bump stock on a barrel that was burned out. Went through about 1,000 rounds of ammo before we ruined the bump stock, which was the whole purpose of the exercise. Not that ever happened in North Texas. Well, actually, was I in North Texas or Southern Oklahoma? I'm not entirely sure. Hypothetically, where I was. Not in Minecraft, by the way. So, either way, I want you, Mr. Andrew, or 24/7 Wall Street, to show me what army still fields 1903 as an infantry weapon. It doesn't exist. But this is the kind of lie that they'll tell. They will tell literally any lie it takes to pass or to push the agenda. For those of you that remember the 1984 bill, Dianne Feinstein standing there with an AK pattern rifle with a drum mag. I mean, yeah, that's a thing. Drum mags jammed so often that they're useless. They're effectively useless. That's not my opinion. That's Ian from Forgotten Weapons' opinion. I think Carl had the same opinion, although his was reflected more the Thompson drum mag specifically, and that's fine. You know, I mean, it is what it is. More to the point. And that was a semi-auto rifle, but she was calling it an automatic rifle, an assault weapon. I want to kind of push this a little bit further out in a direction that most people aren't going to love too much. Yes, she flagged the shit out of the people at the conference. She was literally standing there sweeping it across the crowd. She was trying to make the point. I could be sweeping this across all of you, too. It's a good thing the gun's not loaded right now, isn't it? All right. I'm going to literally give her that little bit of slack of dramatic license because she was trying to make the point, right? It doesn't matter. The whole thing at its basis was a lie. It wasn't an assault rifle, which is what she was literally saying. It was a semi-auto. It was not an assault anything. And those drum mags jam so fast you can't even use them. Matter of fact, I have a casket mag. It jams so much. The one time I used it, that was the North Texas or Southern Oklahoma bump stock burnout test that I guess YouTube removed. We couldn't use it. We eventually had to give up on that and use the belt feed mechanism. And that was a pain in the ass because we didn't really have enough belts. I'm going to go over the Sky 74. Okay, Walt's saying the AK-74 is chambered in 224 and slightly larger than our 223. They'll fire ammo, but we can't fire theirs. I did not know that. I thought they were completely incompatible. It's good to know. I want to talk about another lie that gun controllers tell. It's times like this that I really need a partner, somebody who can show you the information while I'm muted so I don't say something that we all regret later. There it is. Fortunately, what I found was the truth of the matter and not the I mean, they had to talk about the lie to get to the truth of the matter. This is fact check AFP. I've never heard of them before. Claim, Jane of the North, Canadian here, your neighbor with cold winters and sensible gun laws. Did you know we only had, well, let me skip down to the, did you know we've only had 11 school shooting deaths? Not this month or this year, but total in history. And absolutely no deaths in elementary schools. Why? because gun laws save lives. Listen, it's the guns. No, you lying little cunt, it is not. A tweet claiming Canada has only seen 11 people die in school shootings in the country's history was recirculated in posts advocating for stricter gun laws following deadly assault on an elementary campus in the U.S. state of Tennessee. The figure is not supported by official data and is misleading. It excludes shootings at Canadian universities, and without a uniform method to count incidents, cross-country comparisons are inaccurate. Now, I'm not going to go over this in too much insane detail because I got something else I can go over in much more insane detail. Get rid of that because that is not part of the link. There it goes. Ta-da! I'm also going to put that in this. I'll put it in a pinned post. I don't like doing that, but I will. No, Macy, they mean as a frontline weapon. All right. Amongst other things they're not telling you. First of all, it's when they start the count. Right? 1890s, who cares about that? Even if 1,000 people died every day, if they're not counting that far back, they're not counting that far back, are they? Aha, that's one way to help understand the statistics. Well, we don't count anything before 1890 in Canada because we didn't have self-loaders back then. But Americans did, or whatever. They come up with an excuse. It's amazing the way you can come up with an excuse to count the numbers you want. All right. It's just fucking incredible. Another example of how they come up with, or another way of finding the numbers you want, is that school shooting tracker includes any shooting that occurs on school grounds or involves school students off campus. All right. The football team goes from their school to their crosstown rival, right? They have a great game. Everything's fine. On the way home, the team gets caught in the middle of a gangland war, and the bus is hit. Students are not shot. The bus is hit by a stray round. Okay. No reasonable person is going to call this a school shooting, but goddamn school shooting tracker does. That's a Bloomberg company product, whatever you want to call it, by the way. Who? Ozzy's just dropping all the bombs here. There was a school shooting, 9 in Toronto streets last year. I think he meant in Toronto streets last year or year before. Montreal Polytech was the site of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. A year would help there. A number of victims would definitely help because if it exceeded that 11, that proves you were a lying little cunt there, Jane. He did, in fact, mean on. And here's the big nuke of his little arsenal. Before 1894, Canada was still a colony of the UK, not yet its own country. Therefore, it was not Canada's shooting statistics. It was Britain's shooting statistics. You couldn't possibly count anything before 1894. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have existed. Stop screen. Got something much more important, though. Share screen. No. Yes, that one. Watch this shit. This is Dave Koppel. Fear in Britain. They have no guns, so they have a lot of crime. First of all, sir, that's not correct. A person per 100,000 people, they have something like 100 times as many gun murders as the United States. At somewhere between 33 and 66 million people in Britain, they have somewhere around 600 gun murders per year. U.S. has somewhere around 1,000 gun murders per year, with somewhere between 290 and 300 million people. Okay, let's just move on, though. The furor over Philadelphia police encounter with a would-be carjacker and cop killer isn't the only public relations nightmare facing the city's police department. 2,000 reported sex crimes went uninvestigated by Philadelphia police between 1994 and 1997 because the pressure to keep the department's crime numbers pressure to keep the department's crime numbers low, reported ABC News on 11 July. Earlier this year, the department admitted misrepresenting thousands of sexual assaults during the past decade so they can make the city appear safer than it was. All right. I know that the police department has a certain amount of culpability in this. There's no question or doubt in my mind that that is true. But they were also under pressure from city council. This is also at a time when Philadelphia Police Department was restricted to 38 revolvers because a 38 revolver would not normally kill a victim. Therefore, they could be brought to justice, tried, sentenced to prison, and forced to make restitution. It wasn't until 9/11 and when that philosophy finally slightly changed, they were allowed to start carrying 9mm because they wanted to force perpetrators to make restitution to their victims. Still. Okay. All right. Whatever. Actually, Philadelphia is not the only city to underreport crime in recent years, and this is not the one I thought it was, but okay, that's fine. A lot of cities have this going on, and it is coming down from city council. One way or another, it is actually coming down from city council saying, we need you to make the city look better than it really is. Could you help us out here? But when it comes to fudging crime statistics, even the finest Philadelphia number arranger can't compare to our British cousins. During the 19th century and most of the 20th, Britain enjoyed a well-deserved reputation as an unusually safe and crime-free nation compared to the United States or continental Europe. No longer. To the great consternation of British authorities concerned about tourism revenue, a June CBS News report proclaimed Great Britain one of the most violent urban societies in the Western world. Declared Dan Rather, this summer thousands of Americans will travel to Britain expecting a civilized island free of crime and ugliness, but now the UK has a crime problem worse than ours. This was published in 2000. It's actually gotten worse since then. And here we go. This is the big one, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to scroll this on up. Britain's justice officials have also kept crime totals down by being careful about what they count. American homicide data are based on arrests, but British data are based on final dispositions. Suppose that 3 men kill a woman during an argument outside a bar. They are arrested for murder, but because of problems with identification, the main witness is dead, charges are eventually dropped. In American crime statistics, the event counts as a 3-person homicide, but in British statistics, it counts as nothing at all. More often, it's not, crime is just totally dropped. It's pled to a lesser crime. Okay. The rest of it's important, and I will include it. But how important it is here is extremely dubious. In short, Britain has been cooking the books on their crime stats for nearly 100 years that I know about. Flag on the play. They're not the only ones doing it. All of the Euros are doing it. The Canadians are doing it. I'm not sure if Mexico's doing it or not. The Aussies are doing it. The Chinese are doing it. And the Russians are doing it in a big way. They're the ones that came up with it. It was literally the Stalin method of crime reporting. Stalin came up with this idea because, well, is it really a murder if he didn't go to prison for murder? Maybe it was just manslaughter. Give me a second. I will go over the chat in a second, guys, and get caught up. It's called the Stalin method. Joseph Stalin came up with it as a way of couching his crime stats to make the Communist Brotherhood of Russia look better. He couldn't just say, we have no crime here in Russia, because nobody would believe that. Nobody commits a rape when he's drunk and stupid. No, that would never happen in the Communist Brotherhood. Okay, nobody believes you anymore. Well, we have a few rapes. We have a few assaults and batteries, just common criminals. So instead of just flat out lying, Stalin comes up with this simple and brilliant solution of reporting crimes as convicted. That way, he's not, he has 100,000 murders in a year. No. He has 10,000 murders in a year. And most of these were connected to another crime, a robbery, or a kidnapping, or a rape, or something of that nature. Meanwhile, America had 100,000 shootings, 100,000 murders. Well, no. Using that same methodology, we went from 100,000 murders to 1,000 murders and around 500 or so, let's say 5,000, manslaughter, not just gun, right? Total manslaughter, because yes, it was called in as a murder. The 911 call says a man's been murdered, at 2187 Hunter Bus. Hunter Bus? It's not the right name. Whatever. Man's been murdered at 2187 Hunter Bus. The cops get there. Well, yeah, the man's dead. But this is not even close to murder. This is a heart attack. But because it was reported as a murder, it ended up in the murder ledger. One more tick. Meanwhile, that same case in UK isn't listed at all, or it's listed as the natural death that it really was. And in Russia, it's not listed at all because it's a natural death. Why would we report this that way? People don't live forever, even in communist brotherhood. Utopian communist brotherhood. Okay, I'm going to go over the chat for a second because I did take it down. All right. Thank you, Ozzy. We're going to get started right now. Jane of the North already lied. 6 December 1989, 14 women, he said deleted, I say murdered. 13 injured, Polytechnique, Montreal, Quebec. I knew there was something. It's that Polytech, Montreal part that was ringing the bell. Already, we've got more than 11, you lying little whore. Okay. Folks, I have somebody backstage. I'm going to deal with you after the stream. All right. So just kind of hang out there for a minute. All right. Where was I? Already we have Jane of the North is lying. It's just that simple. The fact of the matter is, I know she's lying about the 11 in K-12 too, but that's not something I can prove here. I don't have the numbers. All right. Ooh, not acceptable to mention it. That is a very, very interesting statement there. We're going to talk about that later. All right. This was a link to that story if you want to read it. Yes, I know who Tommy Robinson is. Correction, I know of Tommy Robinson. I've never met the man. Big crime pointing out. Doing it so they bankrupt him and put him in prison. Okay. Yeah, well, Tommy's in trouble for some of his own shit, to be perfectly blunt. He's not entirely the victim here. This is more like the two bad guys who went at it. One of them was worse than the other by a very, very long shot. And then when shit hits the fan, both of them are like, the authorities are like, well, you're both bad men. One of you's a favorable bad man, and the other is not so favorable. So Tommy gets to go to prison, while these other much worse people don't. It is what it is, folks. Now, here's one of the greatest dangers of these kinds of lies. Like the way Britain cooks the books and the way Jane just flat out fucking lied about the number of shootings in schools, right? Every time you tell this, you start one of these lies, you create a chain of specific disinformation. Apple, I'm not going to let you play this semantics game. Fuck you, bitch. It's specific disinformation. You put into the public's head the idea of something that is not true, was never true, and you knew it was never true when you said it. All right. As assuredly, and by the way, Apple, I'm using this as an example. It's not my position. It's nowhere near my position. As assuredly as saying that COVID is 5G. All right. And if you don't have 5G, you can't get COVID. Saying that there was only 11 school shootings in Canada's history is just a flat out lie. It is just a flat out lie. As assuredly as saying if you don't have 5G, there's no COVID, or 5G is COVID, or whatever the fuck that was. So, I don't quite understand it, but let's come back to that later. Saying that Britain is so safe because we only have 600 gun deaths per year. Well, first of all, since the guns are illegal in Britain anyway, all 600 were automatically murders. They couldn't have been anything else. This was 2017 when I put these numbers together for. Second of all, that might explain a couple things. Anyway, no, it's not 600 gun murders that year. All right. It's actually 1,200 gun murders that year. But because about half of them were either never investigated at all or never resolved, so nobody went to trial, or they were pled down to a lesser crime, assault and battery, manslaughter. Very common because every murder at some point was a manslaughter up until somebody died. Or what was that? You can always plead murder down to manslaughter. All right. You've got to prove a little bit more to go from manslaughter to murder. That's the reason why my little pet peeve of drunk driving not being considered first-degree murder. You knew it was dangerous. You knew it was a crime. You knew you are really not supposed to be doing this. And unless you're in your hundreds, you cannot possibly be so old as to remember an era when drunk driving was a non-issue. Even then, it was an issue, but it wasn't a criminal matter yet. Yes, but no. Right? I'll kind of give a little bit of slack. By the time Papa Carey was an adult, yes, drunk driving was actually a crime. It just was not that serious a crime yet. By the time I became an adult, yeah, it was a serious crime. In 20 years, it will be unable to have anybody still alive who does not remember when drunk driving was illegal and they told you don't do this and they told you why to not do this. All right. There's a NASCAR driver who, under very strict and careful supervision, ran a course in his team car, by the way. Oh, no. It was his personal car. Excuse me. God damn it. This is 30 years ago. Work with me here. It was his personal car. It was under the very strict and careful supervision of California Highway Patrol. He ran this course. He did hit a couple of the cones in a couple of the tighter turns, but, that happens. Okay. He got out of the car. He drank 2 beers. He waited about 10, 15 minutes, something like that. He got back in the car, ran the same course, and took out half the fucking... a third of the fucking cones. If you don't get the message that way, you're criminally retarded and you don't need car keys. All right. You don't need bus ticket, even all access bus ticket. You need to be in some nice, quiet, cool building with very well locked doors. It's that simple. God damn it. Ozzy, slow down. There. Knife crime through the roof, but mainly in London. No, it's not mainly in London. It's all over the country. You just hear about it in London. I don't know what 5 Minute City is. I fucking love that. Macy. I understand that in Tennessee, if you are drunk driving and kill someone who has young children, the state will make you pay child support. That is awesome. I love that. And now that he says it, I do remember there is a state. I don't know which one it is. I don't care which one it is, to be perfectly blunt. But he's right. There is a state where that is state law. Mr. Guest, where the hell did you go? I will stay on for like 5 minutes and wait for you. I see what happens. All right. Child support. I fucking love that though. When you boil down all those numbers, Britain is actually much more dangerous than the United States at about 2 to 1, or is it 1.5 to 1? Maybe it's just 1.5. 5 Minute City is jail. Excuse me. I've never heard that term before. I've been to jail. I've never heard that term before. Ozzy's talking about how some states have tried to make drunk driving where it kills a pregnant woman into 2 murder charges. That has failed every single time that I know of. I want to say Hawaii went after that, and it failed at the state legislature. And I don't quite remember clearly. It is what it is, folks. Where was I? When you tell these lies, when you start the lie, you create the disinformation that makes sure that people will never find the truth. You're telling everybody 2 plus 2. Okay, Mr. Guest, stay here this time. You're telling everybody 2 plus 2 equals 5. And they're stuck with believing that. When you repeat the lie, you keep the people that much more confused because they're hearing the same thing. 5G is COVID. It's not. It never was. But people keep believing it. People keep believing the lie, and the more they hear it, the more they believe it. Good night, Macy. Good night, Walt. I think. These lies are getting people murdered. And after 30 years of repeating the same tired old lies, I just got to say, the results are inevitable and intentional. Jane, That was murder. Shannon, you repeating the 33,000 or 43 or whatever it is now, thousand murder or gun deaths per year, and gun violence being this great crisis. After 5 years now of being just 5 years of being called out by me alone, you're lying, you know it, and you're doing it in the hopes of getting children murdered in their schools. Apple, every time you remove one of my streams, you're perpetuating that lie, because the one person calling it out, specifically calling it out, you're making sure nobody hears them. Yeah, oh, that was kind of a point here, folks. Calling Apple out. Calling Susan out for her lies. I'm going to... Oh, no. Folks, I think I just kicked my guest out. Oops. Okay. Tell a big lie and tell it often, and people will eventually believe it. Believe it or not, that was not Goebbels. It was somebody before him. Where are we? And I want to move on to the white pill. Okay, so the white pill for this week is Nebraska has passed a constitutional carry law. Thank you, DJ Play Nice, specifically for announcing this. I think on, on Chris from 740 channel. Chris, I'm sorry I couldn't make it. It's tied up to, I see you there. Welcome back. It's tied up with my work bullshit and drama. But I'll watch the rerun later, I promise. Every time I hear about a state passing constitutional carry, I think that's one more towards mandatory carry. We only need 34 states to pass a amendment to the Constitution. We are now at 27 of 34. We are that close. And I still think California could be one of them someday. Just not someday soon. All right. Next week, I should be back to my regular schedule, which would be Wednesday at midnight, Universal Time. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you don't always get to pick when evil comes kicking your door in or comes into your life without your permission. You need to be ready to respond to that. And I think maybe I'll be addressing the subject of sleeping with brass knuckles on next week. In the meantime, 9017 is here. So keep calm and mandatory carry on.